Hi friends, it's Carly and I'm back again with another review. So the day is finally here. I have my Age of Apocalypse Marvel Legends figures in hand and I am ready to start reviewing them, with Jean Grey being the first I'm going to look at today. But before I get started on that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of getting them, which has been a little bit frustrating. A hiccup once I actually got them and then how that was resolved. So I wasn't going to tell you the company that I pre-ordered from because I've sort of been complaining about how long it took to receive them, and I didn't really want to dog on a particular company. This was a super popular line. Tons of people ordered this set complete, and even though I didn't want to wait, it doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't get it to me as quickly as possible. So my complaints were really just personally being upset that I didn't have the toys in hand, and maybe not a reflection of the company. And the reason I'm going to tell you who it is now is because when I finally got them, I opened all the figures to take the bath out and put the pieces together. And I actually got a damaged piece. So this is the Sugar Man. It's sort of the head and body combined. This comes with Jean, who we'll be looking at in a second. But if you'll look, so there are two arms on each side. And if you look here, you'll see the joints, how they're sort of inverted cones that go into the body. We can see there's like a little separation here, which, I mean, it looks like this one was just all around really not assembled very well. This should have been sort of heat fused up a little bit more, I think. This is really hard plastic. So it's not like the plastic that the bodies of the figures are made out of, where you could heat it and sort of like mess with it a lot. I really don't think there's much potential for that here. But anyway, so these are how the joints are supposed to be, these inverted cones. And when we look at this side, we see here that one of my cones is put in inside out. So this is just a production error. I'm sure that when you're mass producing figures like these, when you mass produce anything, there's bound to be errors. But because, as you can see, here's the correctly installed inverted cone, and here it is outward. Because of this mistake, I was not able to put the arm on the figure. So after waiting for 2 whole months, almost 3 months, to get my figures, I pulled them out, opened them up, and couldn't even assemble the bath. I was so frustrated. So now I'll tell you where I got them from, and the reason I'm doing that is because their response was so positive and so fantastic. I feel like they deserve props. So I emailed Big Bad Toy Store. I got these from Bbts, and I included photographs of, you know, the improperly installed piece. I asked for a return mailing label so that I could send back the damaged figure and bath piece, and asked if they could please send me a new one if there was one in stock, fully expecting that there just wouldn't be one in stock. They got back to me, so this was over the holiday weekend. I got this on Thursday. I emailed them on Thursday. I was so upset. I was probably a little bit direct in the email, not rude, but just like, hey, I need you guys to send this to me. So then Friday and Saturday were holidays, obviously not open on Sundays. I heard back from them Tuesday, and they sent me just a really nice direct email that says, hey, thanks for the pictures. You made this really clear, and your figure will be out to you. And a couple hours after that, I got my shipping receipt. There was no need for me to return the one that I already got, which was really cool, I thought. And yeah, so I felt like they handled it really efficiently and in a way that I'm really satisfied with. So I really want to thank Big Bad Toy Store for doing that for me. It was really cool of you guys to get back to me so quickly on a holiday weekend and to be replacing my Jean Grey so that I can put together my bath. So that is on the way, and I will definitely have it in hand before I finish this series so we can look at Sugar Man all together. But I just wanted to say that if you order something from BBTS and you get it in not perfect condition, I've had a great customer service experience now to say that you should just reach out to them and they'll handle it. I wasn't even sure. I thought I might have to go through Hasbro. So it was just really a great experience, and I'm now really glad to have dealt with them on it. So all of that said, aside from the long wait, aside from the damaged piece, I am ready to get into these toys. And today we are going to start with Jean Grey. The reason I'm starting with her is because she did have the damaged bath piece, so we can just get right into the figure without having to talk about any of the additional stuff that came with her. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about Age of Apocalypse while we look at Jean. I have not read the Age of Apocalypse series. When I ordered these toys and decided that I wanted to review them because they looked so awesome, I tried to order the books and they are really difficult to come by. So I reached out to a friend who had the first volume, and he was very kind to mail it to me so that I could read it, and I kept searching for the other books. I would have been able to get them. But I'm going to be completely honest. So Age of Apocalypse is set in a kind of like another timeline when Apocalypse has moved in and the world is sort of ending and superheroes are joining together to fight him. And this is not going to be a popular opinion. I know that this series was made because Age of Apocalypse is a very popular storyline, one of the most beloved actually. I tried genuinely for a month to read the first volume, and I am a fast reader, the first volume of Age of Apocalypse, and I just couldn't get into it. Please don't roast me too harshly on that. I tried and tried and tried. You know, I always like to talk about the characters that I'm reviewing, and especially in this situation, they'll be familiar characters, but from a different timeline. I'm going to do my best to research the characters individually, but I simply cannot read the book. It's just not good to me. I'm really sorry, you guys, but I just couldn't get through it. So I'm only going to be talking about the figure of Jean Grey, which you'll find I have a lot to say about anyway. If you guys have any, I don't know, anything that you could suggest to me that might make this storyline a little bit more palatable, maybe there's other material I need to read leading up to it. I was told about a book that came before that, and on like 100% honesty, reading the first volume, it was so unenjoyable for me that I didn't even want to try to like go back and do the prequel. But if that will help, if you think that that is really that good, that it will help, let me know. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know why you think I might feel this way, because I am a huge Marvel fan. So anyway, enough about that. I'm not going to be able to tell you a lot about Jean Grey in this story, but I have a lot to say about this figure. So I'm going to start off with this post-apocalyptic look. I really love, this was a 90s book, so this is sort of like a harkening back to the 80s, like Mad Max kind of Tina Turner style costumes, and I really, really like that vibe. I love the coloring, I love the design of this outfit, and the design is exactly the design in the book. So I can say that the way that she looks is the way that Jean looked in the book, and this sort of like severe 80s short haircut is really good looking. The paintwork on the figure is really, really good. I have a little bit of bleed through on the bodysuit right here. A little bit of that navy is showing through, but I mean, that can happen. It doesn't diminish the look of the figure for me, so I'm really okay with that. Before I do points of articulation, I think I'm going to talk about what my main issue with this figure is. And so Jean Grey is an adult woman in the book, and I understand with Hasbro marketing Marvel Legends figures to consumers ages 4 and up, or for people, not consumers necessarily because 4-year-olds don't have money, but for people to use ages 4 and up. So for kids to play with and adult collectors to collect. I understand that there is sort of the sense that voluptuous female figures are not appropriate for kids. And that is not an issue I'm going to try to dissect because it's neither here nor there. That's just what the thought is. So I understand that. But for me personally, the choice to give this adult Jean a much more what I would call adolescent body. And it's not just because of the diminished bust. It's because of the narrow hips, the very tiny waist, the very thin thighs, which if you look at any reference material from Age of Apocalypse, Jean is not that. She is very full-figured, voluptuous woman, obviously an adult woman. So I think that the choice here to reduce her physical measurements, to give her a smaller chest, a narrower waist, narrow hips, thin thighs, which really is a more adolescent body, and to not change the very obviously sexy costume. This was a comic book for adults. This is not a comic book for 4-year-olds. In no situation would it be appropriate for children. So to make this toy appropriate, the approach to make it appropriate for children by changing her physical proportions, which, again, is neither here nor there whether that should or should not be appropriate for children. I argue that in the real world, she would not be able to help what her physical proportions were. And not change the sexy nature of the costume is a weird choice for me. This is a sexy costume. It's low cut in the front. It's a high-waisted leotard. It was over pants or whatever, but it just was a sexy costume, you know? And again, this was material that was created for adults. She's an adult character. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her being voluptuous and sexy. But when we take a voluptuous and sexy adult woman, leave her costume the same, and give her a preteen body, that is weird to me. So right off the bat, just the physical proportions of her make me uncomfortable because she doesn't look like an adult anymore. And then you start to wonder, why is she wearing this super sexy costume if she's 13 years old, which is what her body looks like? So I don't like that choice. And again, I'm not going to get too deep into the reasons why they would choose to do that. For me personally, it's a bad choice on this figure, and it doesn't look right. Everything else is spot on. So the costume itself is spot on. I love the vinyl, that they used vinyl to give her these like nice squared off shoulder pads and give her the bunched sleeves, which are a little bit more 80s than 90s, but they suit the character perfectly. Her facial sculpt and the paintwork on her face are fantastic. So design-wise, I really like it, other than the choice to change her proportions, and that's literally the last thing I'm going to say about it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about that decision. She's got her great casting hands. This jean did not come with any accessories, so what you see is what you get, and I think that's because of the massive size of the back piece that came with her, so I completely understand that. We have a really highly articulate figure here. She's really successful as far as articulation goes. Her head it turns all the way around, but it's on a peg, which I always like more because then you get this full, beautiful range of motion. You can actually look up at the sky. You can actually look down at the ground and every space in between. So I'm really happy with that. She has a high collar, but it does not hinder the range of motion of her head at all. Her head movement is fantastic. In the shoulders, we have the nice lateral arm movement that we like to see. We have a 360-degree turn in the arm here in the shoulder, but it's a little bit tight, quite frankly, because it sort of like brushes up against the shoulder pad, but it works. We have 360 degrees in the elbow, which is a little bit weird. And then the single jointed elbows, which I'm sick of, but that's just what we get with female figures. Her wrist turns all the way around, and she does have a hand that moves, let's see, let's make sure I get this, turns all the way around, and a wrist that moves back and forward. So you do have to be mindful of this sort of like pointy wrist covering on her shirt sleeve, but as long as you point the wrist in the correct direction, you can still get the motion that you want to, even a little bit up into it, just a little bit, but it's a great movement. It looks good, and I really do love the sculpt of her hands. The casting hands, I just feel like they look really good on this figure. So she has all of her movement up here in the torso, which we can see turns all the way around. You guys, it is tiny, and I just can't express enough how off-putting it is, how they made her so tiny and narrow and gave her a child's body. It's just, it doesn't work. It really doesn't. But so that's enough about that. But as we get into the articulation a little bit more, you'll see it's just a strange look. So we have the 360-degree turn here, like I showed you just a moment ago. She doesn't get great movement forward. Look at the bending here. It's not very pronounced. So here's her straight up. That's what we get forward. It seems like it should be more, especially since we can see this like rounded joint sticking out of her back. She does have a good movement back. And I guess depending on the poses that you want to do with your jean, that could be more appropriate. But it just seems that strange that she would be able to go backwards and really not forwards. So it's an okay point, but not the best I've ever seen. Certainly not the worst. And let's see. So in her legs, we've got a pretty decent lateral movement in the hips here. Although it seems for some reason that we have more in one leg than the other. Like it doesn't seem even. And that could be because her torso is moving. But so it's not perfect, but it's good. We have 360 degrees here in the thigh. Double jointed knees that work. Let's get those on the elbows. Please, Hasbro, stop giving us single jointed elbows on our female figures. It's ridiculous. And a ball and socket joint on the ankle that goes back. Forward is a little bit tight. Let's be real. I'm having trouble with this. I think that's probably just because of the paint being a little tacky. So forward, and we don't have movement all the way around. So it looks like a ball and socket joint, but it's really not. Her foot does not turn around at all. It just moves back and forward, which isn't that big a deal, but why? Why wouldn't they have done that? So that is the articulate points on this figure. I feel like it's pretty good. You know, with Jean, you're really sort of getting a, like, strong stance and, you know, a casting type pose. So I feel like she does what she's intended to do, and she should look really great on a shelf. This is just a really dynamic looking costume. And in spite of the fact that I feel like the body sculpt is just a terrible decision and really doesn't do what I think the intent of it was, the look of the character is striking. So as an adult collector, looking at this figure where you know what the character really looks like, I think you can be satisfied with the overall design of how she looks, in spite of the fact that they changed her body so much. So for the first figure in this line, I have to be honest, as much as I was having trouble getting into the story, I really love the design of these characters, and I'm pretty happy with my Jean Grey. There's some strange articulate things. I'm curious about the ankles, why they don't turn at all, why they would have not done that. I'm a little disappointed that she doesn't bend forward, but I'm super impressed with the posability of her head, that you can get all kinds of expressive looks from her in that way. And that even though her costume goes down over her wrist, it really doesn't hinder the hand movement that much. So overall, I'm gonna say that this is a really good figure. She's good looking, she's sharp, the paintwork is bright and beautiful with a little bit of bleeding, but that's just the nature of using red over dark blue, I think. And it's not distracting at all. We'll see when I get my replacement Jean Grey for the replacement bath piece if I have that problem on her or if it's better or worse. Let me know what you guys think of this figure. I know that everybody who cares to order an entire BAF series has already had their AOA figures for over a month or longer now. So I know that I am super late to the party on this, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you have similar thoughts about the body sculpt, let me know. If you love this figure, let me know. I think she's pretty good, and I'm gonna put her on my shelf. I don't really have a good Jean Grey, so this is as good a one as any for me to get started with, and I think she has a really iconic appearance, so I think I can have a lot of fun with her. I am so excited to get on with these AOA figures. There's some really great stuff. There's some curious stuff. One way or another, there's a lot to talk about. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please let me know what you think about everything in the comments below. I think I'm going to start writing some accompanying articles for some of these figures to go on my website. Let me know how interested you are in reading more about these, and if you think that there's something additional I could bring to the table adding, like if there's something that I didn't talk about in the video that you'd like me to talk about in an article. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I will be back the day after tomorrow, which will be Saturday, with another one, and it's going to be a surprise. We'll be looking at one of the AOA figures. Thank you guys so much, and have a good day. I'll see you soon. Bye, friends.